So, that brings me to a question. Speaking of roads, in my own personal neighborhood, I live in Rathdrum, and in my neighborhood, I have both county roads and private roads. So, for instance, the actual road cul-de-sac that I live on, me and my neighbors own to the center of the road. So we maintain from the road to our back property line. That's all on us. But at the end of our road, it ties to a county road, still inside of my neighborhood. And then that county road flows through the neighborhood and hits a couple other private roads. But I know that when the neighborhood was developed, that the developer they did the whole county road, they did the private roads, they did all of it. And I know that when I bought my lot, I bought the part of the private road. Did the county then pay the developer to put that piece of county road through our neighborhood? Or is that something the developer had to put in and donate to the county?
Almost all cases, that developer is paying for all the improvements. So whether it's a county road, whether it's a private road, whether it's a driveway, that's all paid for by the developer. None of those funds really come from a city or a county, unless the city or county really wants some additional road built. It's pretty rare. So in your case, the developer would have paid for that county road, would have put the whole thing in, would have paid for it, would have built the entire thing, designed the whole thing, as well as the private road. And then all of that would have basically gotten sold. So if there's some county improvements that are even outside of your project, sometimes they extend a little bit beyond the edges of your project, all of that still paid for by that developer and is somewhat like in your house price. So that developer might have sold your lot to a builder, and then that builder built a home, but that's all kind of included. And so that new homeowner is paying for all that in their house price.
It's funny you bring that up, being off-site. And when I bought the lot to build my home on, the conversation with the realtor was that there was a piece of that lot that actually was going to go to put into or pay for a portion of the turn lane on the highway down on 53, because the neighborhood was responsible for the added traffic on 53. So how does that tie work? Is that you just donate the money, or are you part of the build, or how does that work?
So there's various things that happen with traffic. So when you're going to build a neighborhood, you have to do all the improvements that are immediately within the neighborhood and adjacent to the neighborhood. So if you're right up against the road, you might have to widen that road, you might have to curb it. But a lot of times, like you're saying, let's say we're going to add quite a bit of homes. Let's say we're going to add 50 homes or 100 homes to a spot. There could be an intersection down the street that new home neighborhood is certainly going to affect that intersection. Mm-hmm. There's cases where sometimes that intersection is already failing. So a lot of people can probably think right now of intersections near where they live that they maybe stack up a whole bunch of cars, especially first thing in the morning or at the end of the day. And that intersection, those intersections are graded by a city, and they grade it just like school. So they call it, it's an A if it's a great intersection, it's an F, it's a failing intersection, and they've got everything in between. And all cities will have a tolerance level. They'll say, hey, we'll accept to this grade. And then below that grade, they're going to want some sort of mitigation. And so what you're getting at, what your question goes towards is, a city might say, hey, we need, that intersection is currently failing. We want you to help us fix that current problem. And so as opposed to if that current problem is sitting there and the city has to fix it themselves, they would have to pay for that whole repair.
Yep.
And so all the residents would have to pay to repair that intersection. If you've got a new project going in, a city can leverage that and say, hey, you guys are going to make that problem worse. So you guys can chip in and help us pay for that infrastructure improvement, that intersection. And it might be the same solution that it was going to be before. So you take a cost of a project, and the part that was going to have to be paid for by the current residents actually goes down, because now that new neighborhood is chipping in. So if it's a signal, if it's a stop sign, if it's a turn lane, that might have been the exact same solution to fix that intersection prior to that new neighborhood. So now, instead of all that money coming from the existing residents, that new neighborhood can chip in for that fix. And that's probably what your neighborhood had to chip in money for, a repair that was probably not even right up against your neighborhood at all.
No, it's actually a half a mile
Right.
away down on the highway, because now there's traffic coming
very
off the
common.
highway.
Yep.
Yeah. So actually what I heard in your answer there that I myself didn't even realize is that ultimately new neighborhoods are actually reducing tax burden that we as neighbors, residents, don't even know are out there possibly coming our way. And the new neighborhoods helping reduce what our cost to fix that issue would be. So
Yeah, that's correct.
sounds to me like growth helps.
It is. It's a case where growth can bring down the cost of an improvement because it's an existing problem. You've got an existing problem. Nobody wants to pay for that. Cities are always budgeting, trying to figure out where to spend money. And so when a developer can come in and chip in for that, it's a huge help for the city.
Awesome.
Example.
Okay,
I'm
so
trying to think of one that happened, like, just recently, so people can kind of understand, like, oh, that intersection got improved because of that neighborhood or something. Like, which one is recent that you can think of?
I can give kind of a future example. So an example of this would be, there's a bunch of proposed projects in Hayden right now, on Hayden Avenue. And one intersection I think it's currently rated an F, is Hayden Avenue and Hutter. And so Hayden Avenue and Hutter gets very difficult, especially during morning commute and afternoon commute. Very dangerous intersection. There's been accidents there. So there's a project proposed for the north side of Hayden Avenue, and there's a few projects proposed on the south side of Hayden Avenue. And all those projects have to do a traffic study. So they're doing, at a certain point on a certain size project, the city's going to say, hey, you need to do a traffic study. And that traffic study actually said, hey, that intersection is already failing. The city, of course, trying to budget things, would rather not pay to improve that intersection. The city wants a street light there. And so as far as my understanding, I think it's still getting worked through the process with the city. But those developers in that area will be paying for the entire intersection. The entire intersection will get paid for by those developers. So you're going to have an existing problem that, instead of paying fees, instead of chipping in, kind of like what we were talking about before,
absolutely.
they're just going to take those fees that they would have paid for traffic and do the intersection for the city.
Got you. And then it'll get donated to the city.
Yep, the city just gets it
Yeah.
at essentially, no cost at all. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that intersection, because I drive through it every single day. And you're
Okay,
right.
well, there you go.
In the afternoon, it can be backed up for a half a mile.
Yep, it gets pretty bad.
And there are a lot of accidents there.
Yeah, well, what happens is, as you sit there for longer and longer and longer, of course, you get frustrated and you get tired.
Yeah.
And then you're first in line and you see a little break and you decide you're going to go for it, and it was the wrong decision. And so as people get stacked up, they make poor decisions.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try to fix that. So these new developments, when they come on board, will be fixing that problem instead of the city having to do it.
I like it.
I'm going to grade that topic with an A.
You're going to grade that one with an A?
That was good. I like that one.
My question, maybe just to follow up right where you're at, would be, you're talking about a current problem.
Yeah.
Well, now you've given it to the city. How are they supposed to fix it? The impact fees pay for that.
How to fix the problem? He was saying they would have to actually build it.
Yeah, if there's so if there were no developments in that area taking place, at a certain point, certainly if there's a certain number of accidents, a city's going to have to step in and fix that themselves. So they're going to have to use whatever funds they have, and they can. I don't know if there's certain rules of where those funds can come from, whether it's taxes from current residents, they're collecting taxes from current residents, or impact fees from developments that are farther away. So there could be a development that's on the other side of Hayden. That development's paying impact fees. The city's putting that in a bank account. At a certain point, they realize, hey, we've got to do something about this intersection. We have to.
Got it.
And so they're going to take whatever money they've got that is allowed to be used for infrastructure improvement and just put it all into that intersection. And the problem, of course, is the city's got a whole list of projects that they'd love to work on. And so they've got to prioritize which are the worst ones. And so they're going to take the worst one. So if you can take a bad intersection like that one that's failing and have that intersection fixed by new development, it's a great thing for the city.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah. And I hear you're saying there that approving those projects in that area brings in the funds to fix the problem without taxing the people to get it done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, growth helps.
It does.
The neighborhood.
It does. Here's a great example. Yeah.
True North Idaho natives remember how dangerous Prairie and 41 was in the dark a long time ago. It was sketchy as crap.
My,
It's better. It's a lot better.
as you know, last summer my wife got a fancy new car, right? She got a fancy new car because my kid wrecked. So we have different storm systems that's kind of controlling the up and down flow of the road. The road itself, what makes up that base? Is that just an engineered thing? Do you get in one place you just pave 2 inches and another place you put in 10? Is there a county spec? How does that road get to be something that's durable and long-term in our neighborhood?
Yeah, good question. So there's lots of different things. One of them is simply how much traffic is going to be on that road. And so, for example, that Gales Glen neighborhood I just mentioned is a cul-de-sac. It's just single-family homes, not a lot of traffic. So that's going to have a smaller section. When you're talking about a section of the road, you're talking about the thickness of the asphalt and then the base that's underneath it, whatever you're putting underneath it. At a certain point, you get down to subgrade, which was what was there beforehand, which in Kootenai County is mostly gravel, and so it's a really good road base. As you get into higher trafficked roads, arterials, main roads, things like that, regardless of what the subgrade is, you're going to get a bigger section because they're going to see bigger equipment, bigger vehicles, heavier vehicles traveling on that. And so obviously as you get into things like Atlas Road or Ramsey or any of these bigger roads that are considered arterials, you're going to get a thicker asphalt section. I think for a typical residential street, you're usually like 2 inches, sometimes on like a 6 inches of aggregate base. And then you've got the native ground below that. And I don't do a lot of commercial stuff, but I'm sure that section gets pretty thick. Really for residential, we get up to maybe 3-4 inches of asphalt. And sometimes some of our projects, if the soil isn't very good, you'll have 9 inches of aggregate, and that might be on top of like another 12 inches of material that we brought in. So that whole road section, if you're in an area that doesn't have great soil, can be 1 foot, 2 feet thick, stuff like that. Yep.
So that brings me to a question